To my family, I wasn't a daughter. I was a utility, the one you keep in the basement and only remember when the power goes out. So when they broke my heart, I decided to break everything else. It was time to show them what a real blackout feels like. My name is Serafina. Before I tell you how I unplugged that empire, I need to know you're out there. Just drop a listening in the comments or let me know what city you're hearing this from. It's comforting to know a story doesn't just disappear into the void. Don't forget to subscribe and follow this journey. It's a story about untangling the toxic code of family and finding your own source code in the process. Sometimes just knowing one person is listening changes everything. Thank you. And now, here's how it all fell apart. It started with silence, not the heavy, waiting silence of an empty house, but the vast, profound silence of the cosmos. For 3 weeks, I had been in the Atacama Desert, a place so high and so dry that the universe feels close enough to touch. I stood under a sky that wasn't black, but a deep, pulsing indigo impossibly crowded with stars. There were no signals here, no screens, no notifications, just the cold, thin air and the quiet hum of a planet spinning through space. For the first time in years, I wasn't thinking in algorithms or predictive models. I was just a collection of atoms breathing. I was just existing. That was the reason for the trip. It wasn't a vacation. It was a decontamination. I was suffering from a kind of digital poisoning, and the source was my own creation. Helios, the artificial intelligence I had built from the ground up, the system that managed my family's billion-dollar world, was starting to feel less like a tool and more like a part of my own consciousness. Its routines had become my routines. Its predictive analyses felt like my own intuition. I needed to unplug myself from the machine to remember I was human. While packing my bags in the pre-dawn chill of my final day, I glanced at the satellite phone, my only link to the world for emergencies only. A single message had arrived 2 days prior from my lawyer, Elias Vance. It contained only 3 words: contract activated. I frowned, running a thumb over the screen. It had to be a system glitch, an automated notification sent in error. The contract he was referring to was a complex failsafe, a ghost in the machine designed for a catastrophe that felt theoretical, impossible. I dismissed it, tucking the phone away. I would deal with the glitch when I got home. 24 hours later, I stepped into the Oracle, our family's hyper-modern estate in Atherton. The air inside was cool, and still a stark contrast to the living silence of the desert. Welcome home, Serafina. Helios's voice, a calm and synthesized alto I had designed myself, echoed softly from the invisible speakers. I hope your period of disconnection was restorative. Everything appeared normal. But as the creator, I could feel the subtle errors in the code of my own home. A chill prickled my skin. That had nothing to do with the air conditioning. The ambient temperature was set to 68 degrees, not my preferred 69. The faint sound of one of Isabel's vapid pop songs drifted from the living area, overriding my standing command for John Coltrane upon my arrival. The air itself was wrong clean, yes, but missing the faint trace of lavender from the diffusion system, my personal welcome home scent. They were small things, insignificant to anyone else. But to me, they were screaming alerts. Someone had been altering the system's core preferences. My machine, the one built to anticipate my every need, was no longer serving me first. I found my mother, Victoria, in the solarium, orchestrating the final details of a charity gala, over a series of floating, holographic displays. She looked up, her smile as bright and brittle as fine china. "Darling, you're back. How was your little trip? Did you get all that dust out of your hair?" She didn't wait for an answer. Isabel has some thrilling new ideas for her brand, you know. She says she needs a truly professional space to cultivate her inspiration. A creator needs their canvas. The words were light, but they were a warning, a needle prick of intent. I gave a non-committal nod and headed toward my sanctuary, my office, the one place in the house in the world that was unequivocally mine. The biometric lock on the solid oak door had always ensured that. But today, the door was slightly ajar, and from within I could hear Isabel laughing. I pushed the door open. The room was unrecognizable. My sanctuary had been desecrated. The wraparound screens displaying complex market analyses and cascading lines of code were gone. In their place stood a ring light the size of a life raft, a green screen, and racks overflowing with designer clothes still in their plastic. My ergonomic chair had been replaced by a plush pink velvet throne. Jars of makeup and brushes littered the surface of my custom-built desk. It wasn't just an invasion of space. It was a complete erasure of my identity, replaced by my sister's curated superficiality. Isabel was in the middle of a live stream, pouting at her phone on its tripod. "Oh my God, you guys!" So then he was like, she glanced up, saw me, and her eyes widened for a fraction of a second before a mask of bored indifference slid into place. She didn't even pause her monologue. My gaze drifted to the centerpiece of the room, the massive obsidian black screen of my primary workstation. It was powered down, a silent black mirror reflecting the garish pink furniture, and stuck to its center was a flickering, virtual sticky note. It pulsed with a soft, insistent light. I walked closer, my feet silent on the cold marble floor. The note was from my mother. "Isabel needs this space for her brand now. Your terminal is in the server room if you need it. We've already moved your things. Dad agrees it's for the best. V." My breath caught. It wasn't the eviction that struck me like a physical blow. It was the last 4 words. Dad agrees it's for the best. My father, Julian, the man whose quiet approval I had spent my entire life trying to earn. The last firewall I thought I had against my mother's ambition and my sister's entitlement. That firewall was gone. The betrayal was absolute. I stood there for a long, silent moment, watching my sister laugh and preen for her faceless audience. I no longer saw the girl I'd grown up with. I saw a stranger, a cheerful parasite thriving in the ecosystem I had built. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. Something inside me simply switched off. A circuit breaker tripped, plunging my heart into a cold, quiet darkness. I turned and walked away. My silence was a promise of the storm to come. The server room was in the sub-basement, the digital heart of the Oracle. It was a cold, sterile space, filled with the constant low hum of fans and processing units, a sound that had once been a comfort, the lullaby of my creation. Now it was the sound of my exile. My belongings, research books, prototypes, personal effects were piled in a dusty corner with a callousness that spoke volumes. I sat down at the auxiliary terminal, the metal of the chair cold against my skin. Before I did anything else, I pulled up Helios's system logs for the last 3 weeks. My fingers flew across the keyboard, muscle memory, taking over where emotion had failed. And then I saw it. A series of failed administrative access attempts, all originating from my father's primary account. Night after night, while I was gone, they had tried to get into Helios's core programming. They had tried to seize the keys to the kingdom. It all clicked into place. The strange behavior of the house, my mother's veiled comments, Elias's cryptic message, contract activated. They had done more than just take my office. They had made a move to take everything. And in doing so, they had triggered the very failsafe my father and I had designed for the ultimate betrayal. They had sprung their own trap. A calm I hadn't felt in years settled over me. It was the calm of absolute certainty. My family had made a fatal miscalculation. They had treated their architect like a janitor. My hands moved with surgical precision. I wasn't acting out of rage. I was executing a protocol. I initiated Helios's hibernation protocol, a deep sleep state I had designed but never intended to use. I systematically decoupled my family's access from the system's core functions. I built new firewalls around the master controls. With a few keystrokes, I rerouted the liquid assets from the investment fund into a secure, encrypted cold wallet that only I could access. I left the house systems functional for now, but I planted a series of small, cascading digital time bombs, annoyances that would begin in 24 hours, escalating from inconvenient to catastrophic. My last action was to delete my own administrative signature from the primary system. I left a final comment in the source code, a single line that only Helios and I would ever understand. I stood up. From a hidden compartment in my luggage, I took out a small, pre-packed go bag containing a passport cache and a set of untraceable encrypted hard drives. I had always known this day might come. I walked out of the server room, up the stairs, and through the silent waiting halls of the mansion. I didn't take a car. I didn't leave a note. I just walked down the long, manicured driveway and disappeared into the night, leaving behind a billion-dollar empire, ticking quietly like a bomb in the darkness. The first 24 hours of my absence were quiet, for me at least. Back at the Oracle, the silence was beginning to curdle. The digital time bombs I'd planted began to detonate, not with a bang, but with a series of infuriating little pops. My mother, Victoria, was the first to notice. Her prized English garden, usually misted to perfection by a complex sprinkler system, went unwatered. The perfect green lawn she flaunted to her society friends began to show the first hints of a sickly yellow. Then the automated coffee machine refused my father's expensive Kona beans, stubbornly brewing the cheap emergency grounds from the back of the pantry instead. Minor inconveniences designed to be dismissed, but they were the first tremors before the earthquake. The real shock came when the markets opened. My father, Julian, sat down at his terminal, expecting to see the effortless green lines of profit that Helios generated in its sleep. Instead, he was met with a flat, dead screen and a single stark message in clean white text. All trading activities suspended per high-level security protocol. The algorithm wasn't just paused, it was locked. Millions of dollars frozen in place. At the same time, a shriek echoed from Isabel's new studio. She stormed into the living room, phone clutched in her hand like a weapon. "It won't let me post. My account is frozen." A small notification on her screen explained why suspicious activity, detected and restricted by Helios security. The calls started moments later. My phone, which had been silent for weeks, lit up like a supernova. First a text from my mother, all sharp edges and command. "Serafina, this joke isn't funny." reactivate the system immediately. Then a frantic call from Isabel, which went straight to a tearful, accusatory voicemail. You've ruined my career. You've always been jealous of me. And now you've ruined everything. Finally, a voicemail from my father. His voice wasn't angry. It was thin, tired, and stripped of its usual authority. Serafina, daughter, we need to talk. Please, just call me back. Half a world away in a small stone house in the south of France, I watched their names flash across my screen one after another. I read their messages, listened to their pleas, and then, with a single steady motion, I swiped them all away. My silence was the only answer they deserved. I had found my escape in Grasse, the perfume capital of the world. I didn't choose a five-star hotel, but a small ancient cave, a stone cellar that I rented from an old woman who smelled of roses and earth. I was converting the cool, damp space into a small perfumery lab. The air, thick with the scent of lavender, jasmine, and rich soil, was a world away from the sterile, ozonic chill of the server room. Here I was, working with my hands, with my senses. It was tangible. It was real. But even here, the ghost of the machine followed me. As I worked blending essential oils and analyzing their delicate layered notes, my mind kept defaulting to its old programming. I found myself thinking of a fragrance's structure in terms of algorithms, its emotional impact as a dataset. Top note, heart note, base note became input, processing output. Helios wasn't just a program I had written, it was the architecture of my own mind. To be truly free, I realized I couldn't just run from my past. I had to create something it couldn't touch. I made a secure call to Elias Vance. He confirmed what I already knew. They're in a state of total panic, he said, his voice calm and steady. And they're getting reckless. Victoria has started reaching out to your competitor, Serafina. She's looking for someone who can crack Helios. I wasn't surprised. They won't get in. I know, he replied. But there's something else. Your father's orrery. He once told me it holds not just a mechanism, but a philosophy. He said, she'll know when it's time to look. When the time is right, study it closely. The cryptic message hung in the air long after the call ended, another puzzle box in a life I was trying to simplify. Victoria, true to form, refused to be powerless. She drained one of their last accessible accounts to hire Cyberstrix, a notorious team of gray hat hackers from Silicon Valley with an ego as large as their price tag. They were arrogant, confident, and they promised the Sterlings full control of Helios within 72 hours. A wave of triumphant relief washed over my family. They believed they had found my replacement. They had found a way to cut me out of the equation for good. My father, in a moment of renewed arrogance, left me a smug voicemail. It seems we don't need your brain anymore after all. The hackers began their assault. For the first day, they seemed to be making progress, bypassing the outer layers of security with ease. My family, watching the progress bar on a screen, popped a bottle of champagne. Then the trap sprung. As Cyberstrix attempted a brute force entry into the system's core, they triggered a protocol I had named the Empty Room. Helios didn't fight back. It didn't resist. It simply opened the gates and let them in. But the room they entered was bare. The protocol immediately and permanently wiped all non-essential lifestyle data. Social calendars, party invitation lists, digital photo albums gone. And most devastatingly, Isabel's entire archive of social media content and follower data vanished into the digital ether. Then came the counterattack. It was a logical, emotionless retaliation. Helios, interpreting the attack as an internal threat, automatically sent a mass email from Victoria's account to every contact on her now deleted charity gala list. The subject: gala cancellation notice. The body: due to an internal financial crisis and an ongoing security investigation, this year's Sterling Foundation Gala has been canceled. We apologize for any inconvenience. The hackers were locked out, their tools rendered useless. My family was left to face the fallout. Their attempt to replace me had not only failed, it had turned their private crisis into a public humiliation. While their world was imploding, mine was beginning to bloom. I had finally perfected my first fragrance. I called it Atacama. It wasn't a pretty scent. It smelled of dry, mineralic, earth-cold night air and the ghost of a rare cactus flower that blooms for a single night in the moonlight. It was the scent of solitude and freedom. My quiet work was interrupted by an unexpected visitor. A handsome, silver-haired Italian man named Marco Bellini appeared at my cellar door. He introduced himself as the owner of a renowned niche perfumery. My guard went up immediately, assuming he was a competitor or worse, sent by my mother. He must have seen the suspicion in my eyes. "I am not here for business, Miss Sterling," he said gently. "I was a friend of your father." He proceeded to tell me a story that shattered the image I held of my father. Years ago, before Helios had made them impossibly wealthy, Julian Sterling had been a secret investor in Marco's struggling perfume house. He handed me a stack of old air-mailed letters. I saw my father's familiar slanted handwriting. He didn't write about numbers or profits. He wrote about the tyranny of the abstract, his quiet passion for tangible arts, and his secret love for perfumery. Then I saw my own name, and my heart stopped. In a letter dated over a decade ago, Julian had written, "My Serafina has the nose of an artist and the mind of a scientist. I have built her a golden cage. Marco and I am terrified she will never learn how to fly." The words blurred through my tears. My father wasn't just a passive accomplice. He was a man trapped in his own gilded prison, fully aware of the one he was building for me. He saw the part of me that I had kept hidden from the world, the part that had nothing to do with code. And in his own quiet way, he had been trying to nurture it from afar. My anger toward him didn't vanish, but it was joined by a profound, aching grief. The email Helios had sent was a social atom bomb. Victoria became a pariah overnight. Whispers of financial crisis and scandal followed her everywhere. Business partners started calling my father, asking pointed questions about the internal investigation. Isabel's sponsorships were pulled, her online presence a wasteland of deleted content and mocking comments. The perfect facade of the Sterling family had cracked, revealing the hollow, dysfunctional mess beneath. They were isolated, trapped in their smart mansion that was now just a dumb, cold house. They were surrounded by wealth they couldn't access and a reputation that was now in tatters. It was in this moment of absolute desperation that my father did something I never expected. He went into his old study, using a dusty laptop not connected to the network, and sent me a single anonymous email. There were no words, just a video attachment. My finger trembled as I pressed play. The video was short, shaky, and filmed in close-up. It was of his orrery, the intricate mechanical model of the solar system he had spent years building. In the video, his hand visibly trembling, reached out and adjusted the tiny brass planets, aligning them into a specific, unfamiliar configuration. When the final planet clicked into place, A soft, metallic click could be heard from inside the machine. The video ended. I watched it 3 times. A chill ran down my spine. It wasn't a plea. It wasn't an apology. It was a message, a clue. He was pointing me toward the philosophy Elias had mentioned, to a secret hidden within his machine. In that moment, everything shifted. Hiding in France, building a new life was no longer enough. The ghost in their machine couldn't stay a ghost forever. To be truly free, I had to confront the source code of my own past and solve the final puzzle my father had left for me. I was no longer running away. I was going back to find the truth. I closed my laptop and booked a one-way ticket home. I didn't come home like a thief in the night. I arrived in the full glare of a California afternoon. The yellow taxi I took from the airport felt like a deliberate intrusion, a common thing trespassing on the hallowed ground of the Oracle. I paid the driver and walked toward the towering glass and steel facade, not with the swipe of a key card, but with an old mechanical key, a piece of analog history I'd kept like a secret talisman. The house was a technological marvel in a state of quiet decay. As the heavy door swung open, I was met not with the customary gentle hum of a living system, but with a stagnant, oppressive silence. A thin film of dust coated the polished chrome and glass surfaces. The air was thick and stale. In the grand atrium, a dozen holographic displays, usually showing serene art or market data, now flickered with identical, ugly error messages. System offline. Awaiting admin input. Helios was in a coma and the house was its dying body. They were in the living room huddled together on a sprawling white sofa that now looked dingy and oversized. They were a trio of deposed monarchs stripped of their finery and their certainty. My father looked older, his shoulders slumped in defeat. Isabel was pale, her usual vibrant energy replaced by a sullen resentment. My mother, Victoria, though still impeccably dressed, had a tightness around her eyes and mouth that betrayed her panic. The sight of me, standing there, calm and self-contained, made them all jolt. Victoria was the first to find her voice clinging to the last vestiges of her authority. "So you've come back," she said, her tone sharp and brittle. "Are you satisfied? Have you seen the consequences of your selfish little tantrum?" Isabel shot up from her seat, her face a storm of conflicting emotions. "Just fix it, Serafina!" She wailed the plea, sounding more like a demand. "Make everything work again. Do you have any idea how humiliating this is? Everyone is laughing at me." My father remained silent, his gaze fixed on me. It was an impossibly complex look, a cocktail of shame, guilt, and a sliver of desperate waiting hope. He was waiting for a verdict only I could deliver. I let their words hang in the dead air, absorbing them without reaction. I swept my gaze over each of them, over the decaying splendor of the prison they had built for me and for themselves. Then I met my mother's furious eyes. "I'm not here to fix anything," I said. My voice was quiet, but it cut through the room like a shard of glass. "I'm here to collect what is mine." The power dynamic in the room didn't just shift, it inverted with the force of a tectonic plate. The air crackled. I was no longer the defendant in their kangaroo court. I was the executioner, and I had finally come to read the will. Without another word, I turned and walked towards my father's study. The journey through the house was a walk through a graveyard of memories. I passed the spot where he'd tried to teach me to ride a hoverboard, the kitchen, where I'd pulled all-nighters fueled by coffee while building Helios's first iteration. Each step was a reminder of a life that felt like it belonged to someone else. My family followed me at a distance, a confused and wary procession. His study was the only room that felt alive, a time capsule of analog warmth. The scent of old leather wood and paper was a comfort. On his massive mahogany desk sat the orrery, its intricate brass gears and polished stone planets gleaming in a stray sunbeam. It was a masterpiece of patient craftsmanship, a universe in miniature. I approached it as if it were an altar. My hand steady now moved with a purpose I didn't fully understand but trusted implicitly. I recalled the shaky video he'd sent, the position of the planets. It wasn't random. It was a date. My birthday. Gently, I rotated the tiny Earth, the miniature Mars, the brass-ringed Saturn, aligning them to the precise celestial configuration of the day I was born. When the last planet settled into place, a dry, definitive click echoed from deep within the machine's pedestal. A hidden drawer, so perfectly integrated into the wood that it was invisible, slid open. My breath hitched. Inside, nestled on a bed of faded black velvet, lay two items. The first was a hardware key, a sleek piece of milled titanium that felt cold and heavy in my hand. The second was a thick, cream-colored envelope sealed with a dark red wax stamp, bearing the Sterling family crest. My name was written on it in my father's familiar slanted script. With trembling fingers, I broke the seal. The letter within was his confession, his apology, and his final desperate gambit. He wrote of his weakness, his inability to stand against Victoria's relentless ambition. He wrote of his horror as he watched her and Isabel begin to view me, not as family, but as a high-functioning appliance, a resource to be endlessly exploited. He knew this day would come, this severing. He had planned for it. Helios has two layers, my brilliant girl, he wrote. The one the world sees is just a shell, a tool for generating wealth. But deep beneath it, there is another core, a secret layer I had you build under the guise of a security update. We called it the Legacy Protocol. It was never just a program, Serafina. It was a final test, a moral failsafe. The letter ended with a plea that dissolved the last remnants of my anger into a profound, aching sorrow. I built this golden cage for you and for me, and I have regretted it every day. Forgive me. This key is the only tool that can unlock it. I have bet my entire legacy not on the money we've made, but on the strength of the daughter I raised. Use this key to free yourself, and in doing so, free my soul from this prison. Don't seek revenge. Build a new order. He wasn't weak. He was a quiet grandmaster playing a long, painful game of chess against his own family. And he had just put the final piece in my hand. He had placed his faith not in his fortune, but in me. My resolve, which had been forged in the cold fire of betrayal, was now tempered with the weight of his trust. The words legacy protocol sent a visible shockwave through my mother. Her face, already pale, turned ashen. She immediately summoned their lawyer, a man, with the predatory smile of a shark who arrived with an unnerving swiftness. An impromptu legal tribunal was convened right there in the dusty living room, the silent, flickering screens of the dead house as our witnesses. Elias Vance. My own counsel was already there, having arrived moments after me, as planned. Their lawyer, a Mr. Corbin, was all bluster and condescension. He argued that any so-called secret protocol was unequivocally a corporate asset of the Sterling Investment Fund. He painted me as a disgruntled employee who had stolen company property and was holding it for ransom. Ms. Sterling Corbin sneered, is acting on emotion, not on legal standing. She has no right to unilaterally activate a system that belongs to the fund. I didn't say a word. I let him exhaust his arguments. When the room fell silent, I simply looked at Elias, who gave me a slight nod. I stood up and walked to my old office. The room was still a chaotic shrine to Isabel's brand, but I ignored the mess. I walked to the black mirror of the main terminal, and in front of everyone, I inserted the titanium hardware key into a port that no one else knew existed. The system came to life with a sound I hadn't heard in weeks, a low, powerful thrum of immense processing power. The screens in the room and throughout the house flickered from red error messages to a cool, clean blue. But the legacy protocol did not display lines of code. It was a digital will. My father's face appeared on every screen, not as a live feed, but a high-resolution recording he had made months ago. He looked directly into the camera, his expression calm and resolute. The Sterling Investment Fund, his voice echoed clear and steady, is a legal fiction. A shell corporation designed for one purpose: to house the profits of the family's only true asset, the intellectual property of the Helios artificial intelligence. He continued, his recorded gaze sweeping over the room as if he could see us all. He explained that he had placed this IP into an independent trust years ago. Then he looked down, as if reading from a script, and triggered the final, irrefutable part of his plan. The protocol accessed the public immutable ledger of the blockchain and displayed a smart contract, a digital agreement created by him and Elias, its terms locked in forever by cryptography. The terms were brutally, elegantly simple. The intellectual property of the Helios AI was the sole asset of the aforementioned independent trust. The sole trustee and lifetime beneficiary of this trust was his daughter, Serafina Sterling. The nullification clause. The contract would be immediately and irrevocably executed, transferring full, permanent, and unassailable ownership of the IP to Serafina Sterling. If any other named family member attempted to seize, alter, or replicate the system's core functions without her explicit written consent, the room was utterly still. And now Elias Vance's calm voice cut through the silence. I present system log. 7B time-stamped 3 weeks, 4 days, and 6 hours ago. He projected the evidence of the CyberStrix transaction onto the main screen. The invoices, the failed access logs, my mother's digital signature, authorizing the payment. This action, Elias stated with the quiet finality of a judge's gavel, triggered the nullification clause at that exact moment. The game was over before Miss Sterling even boarded her flight home. You just didn't know it. Checkmate. My mother stared at the screen, her face a mask of disbelief. Isabel began to sob quietly. My father closed his eyes. They hadn't just lost. They had personally signed their own death warrant, and my father had built the pen. Months have passed since that day. The Sterling Empire did not just fall. It vanished like a digital ghost finally exorcised. Without Helios, there was nothing left but debt and a tarnished name. The Oracle was sold. My father lives quietly in a small cottage by the sea, a tenant in a life owned by the trust I now control for his care. Victoria and Isabel, stripped of their power and their endless supply of money, were forced to confront a world that no longer cared about their last name. Their punishment was not my revenge. It was the simple, crushing weight of reality. I had absolute control. The key in my pocket could have restarted the machine, rebuilt the empire bigger and stronger than before. But my father's last wish was not for me to reclaim the throne, but to destroy the castle. With Elias's help, I permanently decommissioned Helios. I had him wipe the servers, dismantle the hardware, and erase the entity that had been both my greatest creation and my most beautiful prison. I kept only one thing: the core predictive algorithm. I sold it not to a tech competitor or a hedge fund, but to a biomedical research institute for a fraction of its market value. Its brilliant mind would now be used to predict the patterns of genetic diseases, to find cures, to heal. My legacy and my father's would be one of restoration, not of wealth. The final scene of my old life is not a courtroom or a boardroom. It is here in my perfumery in Grasse. It is a thriving small business, now known for its complex, unconventional scents. The warm morning sun of Provence streams through the ancient stone window, illuminating the glittering rows of glass bottles, each filled with a story. In my hand, I hold my newest creation. The bottle is simple, the label clean. The name is Sterling. I lift it to the light. The fragrance is everything I have become. It opens with a cool, sharp, metallic note, the ghost of a machine. It softens into a heart of rich, bitter earth, the scent of buried truth. And it settles finally into a warm, lingering base of wild, resilient flowers, the kind that can grow in the cracks of a ruin. I am no longer a utility. I am no longer a ghost. I am the creator of my own small, tangible world. A new order built not from code, but from light and air, and the profound, hard-won peace of being free. I smile, and for the first time, it reaches my eyes. In the end, my victory wasn't loud. It wasn't about revenge. It was the quiet realization that I could finally build a world for myself, not for them. Thank you for being here with me on this journey. Just say listening in the comments or let me know where you are. I love hearing how far my story can reach. Don't forget to subscribe and join me on this journey where the unspoken feelings of the past finally find their voice. Sometimes, the smallest connection can make a story feel heard. Thank you.